Chapter 131. The Group of Heroes Gathering. After watching the battle, Kang Chon left the martial arts arena and continued to tour the imperial capital. In the sky, after stopping the fight, Wu Gang and the sword and sword duel Jedi both couldn't help but look in the direction Kang Chon had left. They both sensed a familiar aura, only that Kang Chon had already disappeared into the sea of people. Is it him? The blade and sword duel Jedi had a grave expression on their faces. Wu Gang, on the other hand, was charged with battle intent, his sharp eyes ruthlessly scanning the crowd, as if he wanted to find out the figure that had once defeated him. Only, at this moment, Kang Chon had already arrived at the highest building in the imperial capital, the Heavenly Bell Tower. Clang, the melodious sound of the bells was traveling, spreading throughout the entire imperial capital. This bell tower was located in the eastern part of the imperial capital. Very few people came here on weekdays, as the people of the imperial capital were used to seeing it. And this bell tower had been standing here since the establishment of the imperial capital. It had a history of more than 5,000 years. Kang Chon stood at the top of the bell tower and looked down. Immediately the entire imperial capital was in full view, and there was really an aura of having a glimpse of the mountains rising up in his chest. Clang, the sound of the bell was heard. The wind was howling. The icy cold wind was like a knife scraping on Kang Chon's face. But he didn't even frown. The whole person was immersed in a marvelous realm. The bustling and noisy imperial capital, the turquoise blue sky, the bustling crowd, the free-flying birds. Kang Chon felt that his body and mind seemed to have been baptized. The red dust aura all disappeared, and an aura of shedding dust slowly emanated from him. Looking from afar, the silhouette that stood alone on the bell tower was so lonely and ethereal. Clanged another melodious bell sound came. Kang Chon, who was independent on the bell tower, violently opened his eyes, and two brilliant purple rays of light came out, as if the purple lightning bolts in the sky, piercing through the layers of emptiness. This is not my Tao is hegemony. Kang Chon's icy cold eyes flickered with determination as a supreme and invincible hegemonic aura erupted from him. And instantly, the previous ethereal and off-the-wall aura disappeared. Above the entire bell tower, only a domineering figure that stood alone remained. Night fell, and starlight spread all over. Kang Chon stood on the bell tower for half a day, and then disappeared into the darkness of the night. In a small, quiet courtyard in the Jin mansion, Kang Chon closed his eyes and rested his mind. Elder Dan once said that excessively suppressing one's cultivation would involuntarily give rise to heart demons, yet I have never encountered any. Today, climbing the bell tower, but unexpectedly triggered a heart demon, fortunately. The sound of that bell woke me up, otherwise the consequences would be hard to predict. In the house, Kang Chon's heart palpitated. Today, he was almost invaded by a heart demon. However, this was considered a good thing, now that he had lured out the heart demon in advance to resolve it. He would not have to be concerned about the heart demon when he crossed the tribulation in the future. To put it simply, Kang Chon had finished his heart demon tribulation in advance. Moreover, after a baptism of heart demons, Kang Chon's heart had become even more resolute, and his invincible domineering aura filled his entire body, casually exuding a domineering aura with every move. This tour of the imperial capital, Kang Chon was considered to be richly rewarded. 3 days passed in a flash. The morning of the third day, when the first ray of sunlight shines into the imperial capital, the street has been people. Countless cultivators towards the palace school field convergence, although they cannot enter the inside, but can be completely outside the observation. After all, the periphery of the palace school field is open to the crowd. Numerous cultivators hurriedly ran towards the palace grounds, fearing that, if they were late for a while, they would not have a good viewing position. The palace school ground was a huge square that was normally used for the Praetorian guards to train, but at the moment it was occupied by many young talents. Today, the 9th princess was going to invite all the young geniuses of the Dotong kingdom to a banquet. Whether it was the 4 heroes of the imperial capital, the 7 heroes of the Dotong kingdom, and the famous overlord Kangtian of the Dotong kingdom's cultivation realm, all of them would come. All of them could not wait to come and watch. Early in the morning, the periphery of the palace schoolyard was filled with cultivators who stopped to watch. And on the school ground, at this moment, there were already quite a few young powerhouses. One of them was the most eye-catching. He was the overlord warrior Wu Gang. At this moment, Wu Gang's ice-cold eyes swept around, seemingly wanting to find a certain silhouette in the crowd. Wu Gang, you are looking for Kangtian. He. Don't worry, he has already come to the imperial capital. Today he will definitely come. Our 2 brothers would like to see if you can get back your honor this time. The 2 brothers, Teng Yijian and Teng Yichang, walked over. Belonging to the same great Tang 7, they naturally didn't bother to stand with those ordinary people. Instead, they talked to some of the top powerhouses that they recognized. I will definitely win this time, Wu Gang said proudly, his entire body exuding an invincible and domineering aura. Not necessarily. A year ago he defeated you without having conjugated Dan. A year later, with his qualifications, he should have stepped into the conjugation stage. I'm afraid you'll be even less of a match for him, Teng Yizon sneered. You can try. Wu Gang sniffed, and immediately a domineering aura forced towards Teng Yichang. His stern eyes flashed with an icy cold light. Teng Yichang similarly gazed straight at him. His eyes did not retreat for a second. His eyes were icy cold. You'd better save your strength to deal with Kangtian. Teng Yijian pulled Teng Yichang away and talked to some young powerhouses he knew. HMPH. Wu Gang coldly glanced at them, then continued to gaze at the entrance of the schoolyard. At the entrance of the Jin mansion, Jin Sanxiao and Kangtian, at the arrival of Lei Yun, Liu Suifeng, and Hua Wonyong. The 3 of them then headed to the palace school grounds together, and the pedestrians on the road recognized them and followed from afar, their gazes filled with sizzling heat. There are so many people, Kangtian sighed. The original imperial capital was already very lively, and today it seemed to be even more lively, as if everyone in the imperial capital was out. Obviously, an invitation from the 9th princess had startled the entire imperial capital, and everyone was running towards the schoolyard. Jin Sanxiao laughed. Today you will know what it means to be in the limelight. The 5 of them rushed to the school ground at an unhurried pace, encountering more and more pedestrians along the way, all of them running in the same direction. However, when the crowd saw that it was the 5 of them, they all made way for them to go ahead. The palace school grounds had gathered thousands of young powerhouses at the moment, each one of them somewhat famous in the great Tang cultivation world. But the ones who had received the most attention were the 3 of them, the hegemonic warrior Wu Gang and the sword and sword dual Jedi, who were 3 of the 7 warriors of the great Tang, and had received the most attention. Soon after, having Kangtian and the others arrive here caused a clamor. Kangtian's group couldn't even think of not attracting attention. Jin Sanxiao was one of the 4 emperors of the imperial capital. Kangtian was one of the 3 kings of Fendu, and Flower Thinking Wrong, Willow Suifeng, and Lei Yun were all amongst the 7 warriors of the Great Tang. Any one of the 5 of them was a famous figure in the Great Tang cultivation world, and when the 5 of them appeared together, they instantly attracted everyone's attention. Everyone's eyes were filled with scorching heat. It's really the attention of all. Kangtian was a bit unable to stand the sizzling eyes that came from the surrounding **** and he felt uncomfortable. Jin Sanxiao and the others, however, didn't care at all. Even Hua Xiangrong had a bashful look on her face. It was obvious that they had long since passed through such a scene and had long since become accustomed to it. Let's go to the front, Jin Sanxiao said, as one of the 4 emperors of the imperial capital. He had a specific position in the schoolyard. Not only him, but Kang Tian and the 7 heroes of the Great Tang also had one. This was a sign of respect for the most pinnacle of strength of the young generation. Kang Tian and the others nodded at his words. However, right at this moment, a domineering voice came out. Kang Tian, I want to challenge you. Before the words fell, an incomparably domineering figure had appeared in front of Kang Tian and the others. Kang Tian looked in surprise and couldn't help but be stunned. The person who came was actually the hegemonic warrior Wu Gang. Wu Gang looked at Kang Tian with an icy gaze and said coldly, "Do you dare to fight?" The surrounding crowd was in an uproar. The hegemonic warrior Wu Gang, who had been defeated by Kang Tian in the past, was actually going to fight Kang Tian again today. This was undoubtedly an attention-grabbing fight. Immediately, everyone's gazes converged, and a murmur rang out amongst the crowd. Kang Tian couldn't help but frown. Although he hadn't formed Dan, he wasn't afraid of Wu Gang. It was just that he didn't want to fight right now. After all, a month later would be the duel between him and Li Laoki. He didn't want to expose too many of his cards before then. On the side, Lei Yun knew about Kang Tian, immediately walked forward and said, arrogantly, "Wu Gang, you and I are both Kang Tian's defeated men. If you want to challenge him today, then you have to defeat me first, otherwise you're not qualified to have a duel with him." After Lei Yun finished speaking, a powerful aura erupted. Opposite Wu Gang's eyes immediately froze. But he didn't retreat. His expression was still incomparably domineering. The two men's auras erupted, and they sparred in the middle of the field. "Stop!" Kang Tian stepped forward to stop them. A powerful intent erupted and suppressed the two of them. He said coldly to Wu Gang, "If you want to challenge me, then wait until I defeat Li Laoki a month later." Wu Gang was silent at his words and then turned to leave. Lei Yun glanced at Kang Tian in surprise and said with some shock, "Your intention has actually increased by another 10%. It's incredible. Nowadays in the young generation, I'm afraid that no one can compare to you if it comes to chi pressure." He was very shocked in his heart, although chi pressure did not represent the full combat power. But losing in chi pressure would be equivalent to losing the head start. Just like just now, Kang Tian had already suppressed his and Wu Gang's aura before he even made a move, and that alone put them at a disadvantage. In today's young generation, Kang Tian, who had comprehended 20% of the intent, was absolutely unrivaled in terms of aura pressure. What a big mouth, when my Li family has no one. Suddenly, a cold hum exploded from the sky, and when people looked up, they saw a domineering figure slowly descending into the schoolyard. As soon as this person appeared, a clamor erupted in the field, because this person was a Li Yuanba. Li Yuanba coldly looked at the sky and said disdainfully, "Just by virtue of you also want to defeat my 7th uncle, go back and practice for another few decades." Saying that, a powerful aura pressed in. However, Kang Tian was unmoved, wanting to oppress him in terms of chi, unless it was a Yuanyin stage powerhouse. He stared coldly at Li Yuanba and laughed coldly. "Killing your 7th uncle is like slaughtering a dog. Go back and tell him to write a good suicide note. I will take his life in a month." Li Yuanba's eyes shrunk at the words, followed by boundless fury. His eyes rounded in anger. He laughed morosely. "Arrogant brat, no need for a month. I will behead you today." Saying that, Li Yuanba directly blasted his fist towards the heavens. The boundless power made a shocking ringing sound in the air, and the entire space was trembling, as if it was being torn apart by a huge force. "Stop!" Seeing this, Jin Sanshao rushed forward and slapped out a sheet. The thick true essence exploded, surging and volatile like the Yangtze River. The blazing light eclipsed the sun in the sky. The two forces collided at once, erupting with a thunderous sound. When the light dispersed, Li Yuanba stayed put and coldly looked at Jin Sanshao, who stood in front of Kang Tian and said grimly, "I want to kill. You can't stop me." The ground under Jin Sanxiao's feet showed signs of cracks. Clearly he was at a disadvantage from the strike just now. Kang Tian could not help but be shocked. Although Jin Sanxiao and Li Yuanba were both at the 6th level of the Jidan stage realm, but Sanxiao was only an 8th turn Silver Dan, and was not a match for Li Yuanba's 9th turn Gold Dan. And the two sides' true essence quality differed by a level.